70% of people aren't obtaining that average requirement of vitamin D.
Wow.
60% aren't reaching it in magnesium. 33% aren't reaching it in K. 40% are not reaching it in calcium. Fundamental foundational approach is to get these nutrients from your diet, but the reality is what I just said.
This is Generation Health. We bring you the latest news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices, helping you live a longer, healthier life. Sitting across from me, Joey DiMatteo. How are you, my friend?
Doing great today, Tyler. How are you, man?
I'm delightful. That's a good-looking shirt.
Thank you.
Have I seen that one before?
Little texture. No.
Yeah, I like the. It's good for the eye.
You tell me to wear dark blue, so I got a new dark blue shirt.
I said that?
Yeah,
totally.
Way back, you said what's the best colors for podcast? You told me blue, light blue, dark blue.
Oh, okay.
Is that not true?
I don't know. I don't think it matters all that much.
This is going.
If you're doing a portrait, you want a dark color to allow the skin tone to pop. Usually,
what's the difference if I'm on vid? Why don't you want my skin tone popping?
Not a thing. I do. I want your skin tone
Thank
popping.
you.
Josiah, save us here. Josiah
color.
Schweinberg, who is you were eating that camera.
I was
there for
adjusting.
A
Yes, adjusting the camera.
Josiah, our engineer, third microphone. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well.
You're not wearing dark blue.
I'm not.
You didn't get that memo.
I did not.
A nice shirt though.
Thanks.
Shirt with a message.
It is.
There is nothing serious about any of that conversation, but we've got a question. This one's from a listener. You can email us questions at askjoedimatteo.com. That's questions at askjoedimatteo.com. Alternatively, you can leave a comment on the video or message us through our website, askjoedimatteo.com. Also a possibility, but this one came to us through an email. It's from Linda. She said, I need to take 1,200 milligrams of calcium due to bone density test results. Calcium tablets now contain other ingredients such as D3. I'm already taking vitamin D3. Should I stop this or get calcium with magnesium or other suggestions? Thank you, Linda. Well, thank you, Linda. Joey?
Good question. Very common. So I guess I'll start with the calcium part.
Sure.
She mentions 1,200 milligrams. That's where it can get a little complicated. I also think anytime, I know for me, when I'm looking at supplements that are nutrient based, we're not talking anything herbal, not talking anything kind of amino acid, different, specific. That's, hey, these are things we get in our diet. So when there's a recommended number, where to be getting from our diet. So 1,200 milligrams is what's recommended for those over 51. And for reference, the upper safety limit is referenced more around 2,000. So I looked up just some common foods. You hear of milk, cheese, those kind of things. Milk has like 300. The other big one are green leafy vegetables, collard greens, broccoli rabe, kale, even soy as well. 175 in soy, between 100 and 200 in broccoli, etc. So, you can get it, but we're talking pretty specific. How many people are really eating the green leafy vegetables, not iceberg in a salad,
right?
But the actual green leafy vegetables that are mentioned. And what I thought was interesting was meat. I always think of meat, protein, iron.
Yeah.
No calcium. 10 to 15 milligram per 3 ounces in beef, 12 to 17, 3 ounces in chicken, like
totally
negligible.
Yeah.
So the 1,200 will kind of start there is total.
Okay.
Doesn't mean 1,100, 1,300 that's the general, that's what you're going for. So do you absolutely need that much given, what diet may be, maybe not, but that's where it comes from. So I think the most simple answer, and probably not the kind of answer you would expect in a podcast like this, is that the calcium carbonate or calcium citrate that you would find, I always reference like the grocery store type supplements, is okay.
Yeah.
If it's carbonate, that's the most common one, but these are very cheap, very easy to get. Okay. If it is carbonate, take it with food. Caution in patients on antacids, whether PPIs, H2 blockers. Really what that's about in terms of taking with food and why I linked it to the antacid use is that you need stomach acid to absorb this properly. So food, eating will stimulate that. And then you may say, well, yeah, I'm on Protonix, but it's because my acid is so high. But typically what you're seeing, you could have an issue with the esophageal sphincter. Typically what you see on those is the acid level gets suppressed so low that even though maybe it came from an initial diagnosis of what could have been elevated acid production, where you're functioning right now may be low. So just be aware of that if that's the route you tend to go. Choose to go. Calcium carbonate also can cause some GI distress. So just be, aware of that. Citrate, a little bit, maybe of a better option, less GI upset, is a little more bioavailable, still cheap, still easy to find, doesn't have that dependence on food and stomach acid. Very reasonable option. The vitamin D question, unless your level is documented to be high, it's not like you would need to avoid the amount of vitamin D that's in here. So I'm just going to assume maybe she's taking something just supplementally kind of on her own, 1,000 units.
Yep.
She may be getting 400 or 800 from like a calcium vitamin D combo product.
Okay.
Practically speaking, is pretty negligible.
Yeah.
Now she said, hey, I've been on this prescription one and I've been taking this high dose and I don't get my level checked. Then maybe. Yeah. But if you've been recommended a high dose because your level's low, you're not moving the needle there. If you're taking a low dose because you've just heard it's good for you, which it is, it's not really going to move the needle. So either way, I wouldn't, make any decision based on that. All that said, though, as for any of us, but especially as we age, depending if you're in a cold climate, we always recommend you get your D level checked. Yeah. Got bone density issues. Vitamin D is not going to be the be all end all, of course, but it's certainly a factor. Get that level checked if you haven't already. And then that can even answer some of this question as well. You may not be taking enough, you may not need that extra one if your level is really good, maybe you're outside a lot, et cetera. So it's just, that's kind of a standing recommendation, but I wouldn't make any decision on the product you choose based on vitamin D and whether to stop taking that one. I can't see anything wrong with her continuing what I assume maybe is just a low dose one she's taking on her own, given the issue that she has.
So if I heard you, barring unique extenuating circumstances of somebody actually having excessively high vitamin D levels, which is an exceedingly rare thing, especially in modern America. Exactly. Not only is there no reason to not double up, it's fine and probably beneficial.
That's essentially what I'm saying. Okay. Yes, it's an important question, but it's also kind of like a non-issue ultimately is why, and that's why.
Good to double check. Don't sweat it. And then as far as the magnesium or other suggestions, you're talking the citrate and the carbonate, those are different forms of magnesium, of calcium. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And you're saying it's not a big deal unless you're on a PPI or something
we'll
like
unpack that a little more, but the difference between those two, carbonate is fine, unless GI distress, unless you're on an antacid, and if you take it with food. The citrate probably is just the easier option overall, less GI distress, little bit better of a product. Yep. And then no issues taking with or without food. So if you're going kind of the super simple route, and we'll get a little deeper here. Yeah. If you're going the simple route, which again is okay, I'd probably in the coin flip go with the citrate if that's the route you're going.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Now let's get into some of these questions behind the question here. Yeah. Right? So she's got bone density issues, it seems like. You said 1,200 milligrams is the recommended dose for women over 50.
Anyone over 51.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know that osteoporosis and osteopenia are huge issues, especially for older folks and extra especially for older women. What else is going on here? I mean, we're kind of guessing based on the question, but it seems like that's a substantial issue here.
Yeah, I feel like we can maybe answer a little more than what she's directly asking, but like you said, kind of the question behind the question. So I think, we're on doing this health podcast, and I just said it's okay to take calcium citrate or calcium carbonate, and like I get that that's probably like why that's not real helpful. What's going on here? And again, I just want to emphasize that it's okay if you're listening to a podcast like this. You've been documented and tested to have low bone density. And maybe your attitude is not so much like, hey, this is what my doctor said, I'm just going to go with it, but what's the best that I can do and why? The nuance to it would be that there are some products and forms of calcium that can do a little more for you. Okay. And I think always remember too, and I know we talk about this, but a doctor's typically making a recommendation like this with a broad approach.
Yep.
What can he recommend that's going to be cheap, that's going to be simple, that's not a prescription item, that just kind of gets the ball rolling, that you know is okay and good?
And you know people are going to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you come on here and say that calcium carbonate and citrate don't do anything and they're terrible and they're going to lead to calcification, and you go that route and you go against what's a very reasonable recommendation from a doctor, I just feel like that's doing you a disservice.
Yep.
If that's the average recommendation, that is okay. If you're here and you want to go a little deeper, we got something for you. This is essentially where we're going.
All right. Well, tell me about that.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Yeah. I would be remiss not to mention dealing with bone density. And that's typically coming with advanced age, et cetera, postmenopausal women, exercise, but specifically weight bearing exercise. This is more Dante's wheelhouse, sticking kind of to the supplements in this segment. And he has addressed that in a previous episode.
Yeah,
I
we
believe.
did a whole two-parter on osteoporosis. It was in the 40s, 46 and 47. I looked it up.
That's a critical element here. I need to mention that as we kind of, unpack some of the supplements.
So if you want to know more about osteoporosis and osteopenia, real deep dive, we did 2 full episodes on that subject, episodes 46 and 47. Go check them out. Okay, back to this conversation.
Yeah. So again, we're discussing pretty basic nutrients that are found in food.
Yep.
Kind of went over that. But I think what's also important is just to mention that these nutrients in particular, it's very common to be deficient in. Okay. So, I read the list of calcium content, not super easy unless you're eating a lot of green leafy vegetables and a lot of dairy. And there may be other issues why maybe you're avoiding that.
A lot of people don't eat dairy for dietary
And there's
reasons.
certainly some fortified foods and things like that you can get, but there are epidemiological studies, national surveys of Western developed countries. This isn't one of those worldwide and you're looking at, nutritionally deficient areas. These are Western developed countries. 70% of people aren't obtaining that average requirement of vitamin D.
Wow.
60% aren't reaching it in magnesium. 33% aren't reaching it in K. 40% are not reaching it in calcium.
Wow.
Is that 100%? Is it impossible to get these from your diet? Of course not. Our foundational approach is to get these nutrients from your diet. But the reality is what I just said.
Yep.
Okay. So, and as we age, the nuances come in here too. The dietary changes typically aren't positive as you start getting older. People may be eating less in general, maybe going more processed route. Further, medications.
Yeah.
Many medications, like we already mentioned the antacid, if you're taking your calcium supplement, but there are plenty of medications that can decrease the absorption of the nutrients that you're taking in, especially again, as we age. So again, basic recommendation, carbonate and citrate is okay, is fine. But something like calcium hydroxyapatite.
Okay. That
is the form that we have in one of our products in bone-based essentials. Chelated calcium, especially chelated with malate. These forms are much more bioavailable. That again means the body can better and more efficiently utilize them. Okay. Calcium hydroxyapatite is actually calcium combined with phosphorus. And that's essentially the bone matrix. That's what makes up your bones. That's how your body, so basically when you take in calcium alone, it's got to form that matrix. This not only already has it done, but it does so in a way that your body still absorbs very well.
Okay. And that's the bone support?
That's in bone-based essentials.
Bone-based essentials.
Mm-hmm. So a 2020 study compared 851 women divided into 2 groups, a calcium carbonate group, a calcium hydroxyapatite group. They measured bone density at the lumbar spine, okay, after 3 years of follow-up. The hydroxyapatite group remained stable, and the calcium carbonate group declined 3.1% in 3 years.
Okay.
So not a groundbreaking difference, but it is significant.
Yep.
And the other layer, and that goes back to even just what we said about okay versus best.
Yep.
Okay. But I think what's important too is that the calcium amounts, the elemental calcium that you see was 70% in the hydroxyapatite group. So you can see the absorption. So you had better results with less actual elemental calcium because of the absorption, because of the bioavailability.
That's great. Okay.
And in that study, there's no mention of some of the other nutrients, K2, magnesium, vitamin D. Those are critical for bone health, and we'll get to those. It was just an apples to apples comparison of the calcium itself.
Yep.
So magnesium is also in bone-based essentials, but it's also very important in and bone health. And it only comprises 1% of our actual bones, the bone mineral density, so it can often be overlooked. The catch is that when that number drops below 1%, when there is insufficient magnesium in the bones, in the diet, in the blood, especially in a form that's not very absorbed, the bone matrix, that calcium hydroxyapatite bone matrix, the molecules themselves become bigger and become more brittle. So magnesium in that absorbable malate form enhances not only the absorption of calcium, but of vitamin D as well.
Okay.
So a few layers again to how that helps.
Yeah.
K2.
I've heard that paired a lot with D3.
Yes. And we'll kind of talk about how they work together. So K2 helps to bind the newly absorbed calcium to the bone matrix. And it does so by activating the protein osteocalcin. So there's the whole mechanism of how it's working. It decreases the activity and regulates osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are cells that help break down bone.
Okay.
So it regulates and decreases their activity. So from a more broad health standpoint, it has a role in increasing the activity of MGP, or matrix GLA protein, which decreases the calcification of arteries. So it's interesting to see how they kind of work together, not just in the bones, but in the body as well, with what it's doing with the calcium when you take it.
So this seems that would be useful for a lot of folks for a lot of reasons.
Yes. And then the vitamin D link vitamin D is essential for the absorption and utilization of calcium by the body. But beyond absorption, it also plays a role in increasing the reabsorption of calcium from the kidneys. Helps you to absorb it in the gut, helps your kidneys to reabsorb it as well. So again, we're back to the link of D and K2. So D is helping you to kind of keep and absorb the calcium. K2 is kind of what are you doing with that calcium? It's helping to put it in the bones,
in the places you want it,
and to help prevent the calcification of arteries, which, as we've seen at mega doses of calcium, definitely can be an issue. So it's interesting, again, how these all work together. A Japanese study of 172 postmenopausal women randomized into two groups. One group was D3 alone. The other group was D3 and K2 together. So no difference about calcium. They kept those D3 doses the same. They just looked at these two ingredients, found higher bone density levels and lower rates of hip fractures in the K2 and D3 supplement group.
Oh, that's fantastic, because that's the big problem.
The endpoints and yes. And so again, that was just looking at that. So again, the goal here would be, okay, you've got that nugget about the D3 and K2 together. D alone is good, but now you've got the link with K2. You got a better form of calcium.
Yep.
You see magnesium's role, the bioavailability of the calcium that you have, you're kind of putting it all together versus isolating these one things.
That makes sense. Why we would call it bone-based essentials. That really helps cover all the bases. Okay.
Exactly.
Very cool. Anything else in that one that we need to talk about?
No, I think if bone-based essentials is the route you want to go, 3 per day.
Okay.
Ideally, maybe split them up, 2 in the morning, 1 later in the day, but 3 a day is the most important thing. If you're doing it all at one time, it's okay.
Okay. Very cool. The FDA is taking action to address unapproved thyroid medications. This is all well beyond my pay grade. This happened in August of 2025. So let's start at the beginning. This thyroid medication, what that they're talking about, what is it? What are we talking about?
So they're specifically talking about desiccated thyroid extracts. Okay. And again, that may be good for you to bounce back some questions, maybe about some of the details, but basically, it's porcine or pig thyroid, okay, that's extracted essentially for its T4, which is levothyroxine, and T3, leothyronine activity. So typically, when somebody has hypothyroidism, they go on a medication. If they're at that level, they get put on levothyroxine, which is T4 and T4 alone. This is a little bit more of an alternative version of that. They're getting T4, but then there's also T3. And I think part of maybe what some of the controversy is, it's a whole gland extract, that there's other components in there that are not regulated, that are not well known, that are not well studied. It's not just T4 and T3.
Okay, it's not just T4 and T3, and that's part of the problem, or maybe even a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
It's literally from the pig gland. So I assume when it's being handled and extracted.
That means dried out.
Yeah, like it's literally, yeah. It's been around since the 1800s. So back then, you could imagine they were just taking the gland, pieces of the gland.
So,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
desiccated literally meaning dried out.
Dried out thyroid gland extract.
Okay.
Yes,
Interesting.
from pigs. Yes.
All right. And this has been used as kind of an alternative to levothyroxine or any of the big name thyroid medicines.
Yes. And to me, what direction I could see a lot of people going is, hey, Synthroid, levothyroxine, that's what my doctor usually wants me on. That's like the standard. And as soon as something's alternative, like the desiccated thyroids encompass armor thyroid, nature thyroid, some compounded. So it's a little more in the alternative realm. And so I think, FDA is banning the alternative stuff. Look what they're doing. So I think there's a couple nuances there. Just they're not banning them. Basically, desiccated thyroid in whatever form, whether you're getting it from a compounding pharmacy or whether it's Armor or Nature or WP, it predates FDA approval. So it's regulated in terms of it's still under the purview of the FDA, but it has not been approved and gone through the drug approval process because, like Dante said, it dates back to the 1800s. So it's almost like grandfathered in.
Yeah.
So they're basically just taking an opportunity. The why the timing
now?
of it,
Who knows?
sure, but they're saying, okay, we're not banning you, but unless you go through the process to get this approved via the FDA, which they have not done, not out of some nefarious motivation, but because they predate it, then you're not approved. They're giving them a year to do that. Okay. So I just, again, want to just, clear the air on some of exactly what's going on.
So it's not disappearing from store shelves tomorrow.
A year.
They've got a year. And whether or not they follow through and get this approved, we'll find out. But as of right now, the FDA has said, you've got a year to get this tested and approved to make sure that it's all good. So, okay. So what are their big complaints? The FDA is not into this because of the other things. It's not the T3 and the T4. It's the other stuff that's in there.
Yeah. And there has been some history of some batch to batch issues. Some of the, the extracts have not been of the labeling that's on there. And those have been recalled. So again, you can kind of say, why is this going on? So I think they really just want to get them approved and standardized. And then again, there's other ingredients in there, T1, T2, there's other ingredients in there that make up a gland that have never been studied or looked at.
And it's still an animal product.
It is. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea about all of this. Keep going.
Yes. I mean, there's a couple different directions. I think one of them is, why would somebody be on this, and why would they want to be on this instead of levothyroxine?
Right.
So the main thing, and maybe to jump to the pharmacological end, is that it contains T3. T3 is the more active form. Basically, your body is converting the T4 to the active form T3, and that's what's exerting the effort. So we can get into some of the details. There is maybe what I would call a substantial minority, a significant minority of people that have a better experience, maybe not from their TSH level or some of their lab work, but that have a bit more symptom improvement and sense of well-being by having some T3 on board versus just the straight T4.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why you would stick with that. Is there any substantial price difference or anything like that?
On our end of things, I don't really think there's a huge price difference. The only issue in price difference is a lot of the desiccated products aren't recognized on formularies. So I think there's probably a skew towards out-of-pocket payment for these thyroids. But that's that just kind of like feeds this whole thing, is that people are like, I swear by this, I pay this money for this. Now it's my money. They're banning it. Mm-hmm. So it is just, you got people's identities wrapped up in which thyroid product they're taking. Sorry. But yeah, it's rough. Like it's a rough one, because we're the ones getting the phone call, trying to explain what might be an option for you temporarily if some of these manufacturers pursue the proper steps at this point to seek approval, which it sounds like some might. But it's going to take longer than the 12-month transition period.
And these drug companies aren't going to do it, and then we're going to be in the same financial position. I
was just going to say
in 2 years that it's going to go up to brand level. My assumption is $300, $500, $600 a month.
Wow.
Now, hopefully insurance will step in and cover them at that point once they've gone through the process. So I do think, it's important to, again, note that there is a substantial minority of people that do respond better to these. There's a couple different angles here. The natural aspect, and I've had this conversation many times.
Yeah.
Depends what your view of natural is. Like Dante mentioned, it is an animal product. And also it's in a ratio, a T4 to T3 ratio of 4-1. That's a pig ratio. The ratio in humans is 14-1.
Oh, wow.
So, the whole natural end, if you prefer natural from an animal source versus what's quote unquote synthetic
in a lab, right?
In a broad sense, I get that. But what I often say to people is that the T4 and T3 that, yes, is synthetic and made in a lab ends up as a bioidentical product. It ends up as a pure, your body contains levothyroxine. You're not putting a chemical in your body that is mimicking the effects of levo or leothyronine. It is a synthetically made bioidentical product, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If we took it out of your body and we took the actual product and we looked at them under a microscope, you would not be able to tell which one was which because they're the same thing.
Yes. There's not a difference in effectiveness. So again, the natural works better for me. It's like, okay, let's back up. The natural is working better for you, which again, there are studies showing that in a substantial minority, that is the case. It works better for you because there's T3 in there. It's not because it's natural. It's not because the synthetic, you don't respond to the synthetic. Right. It's working better for you. I validate that. Studies validate that in some people. It's because there's T3 in there.
So are there any mainstream products right now that have T3 in them?
The short answer would be to switch to levothyroxine or Thyroid by itself to get the same T4 portion, and then switch to leothyronine or Cytomel by itself, which does exist as a product in 5 microgram, 10 microgram, etc. And you can get pretty darn close to the ratio that you were getting in the desiccated animal-derived products. Or, if there's an issue with a dye or there's this filler that Thyroid had that you couldn't do, there's all these, you wouldn't believe the layers to this.
Yeah.
You could always have it compounded, and you can have T4 and T3 together, or it could be separate. It could be, whatever your provider wants you to have. If they want you to continue on it, there are ways to still take T3 and T4. It just might look a little different.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's great news. I know these sorts of changes really ruffle people's feathers.
Understandably so.
Yeah, you get settled into a routine and things are working. Stop messing with it. Just leave it alone. But the punchline is, regardless of whether the companies get it approved or not, there are ways that you can get that same effect right now with products that are available, especially if you're compounding.
Definitely. And so people may say, well, why wouldn't you want T3? Why isn't everybody just on T3 if that's what's active? And essentially it does raise the risk of increased heart rate, raises the risk of atrial fibrillation. Okay. So there are cardiovascular risks if you're not being monitored properly, if you kind of just jump on it. So it is something to be careful with. I think that's important to mention again, in the whole scheme of, why they want this approved. It's because, yes, T3 is approved as Cytomel alone, but you've also got this kind of, this kind of middle ground one that has some other stuff too that's never really been approved that has T3 in it. So maybe we can clamp down a little bit and make sure that people on T3 are getting a certain product and it's been, regulated in the same way.
Better understood. Sure,
yes.
Sure. All right. So for anybody out there that is currently using a desiccated thyroid product, one of the what do you say, animal sourced thyroid products, what's the punchline that the 2-second takeaway that people need to know?
I think the key is to understand that from clinically speaking, you are receiving benefit and you prefer this over, maybe, you probably started on T4, the levothyroxine or Thyroid. You prefer it because there's T3 in it. And T3 can still be obtained without doing the natural desiccated thyroid. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. The view of natural coming from a pig in those ratios, the entire gland of a pig versus, yes, synthetically made bioidentical is still something, again, I've had that conversation multiple times.
Sure.
The other thing that happens that I think that's key is if you're on one of these products,
you're moving in a fixed ratio. So what I mean is your doctor may want to raise your T3, but he can't do that without raising your T4. Or he may want to raise your T4, but man, this T3 is hanging fine. Do we really want to raise this more active, this one with more potential issues of T3? Whenever you get a cytomel or you get it compounded, you have the option to leave one and raise the other. You have that option. So in my opinion, I think these are fine, but I think they're good because they contain T3 for certain people. Not better for everyone,
Sure.
But for those people who have not gotten symptom relief despite having a normal TSH, I think that that's still a great thing that T3 would be on board for them, but it still can be done. It can be done via cytomel, via something that ends up bioidentical, via a compound with more customization options.
Love it. Very cool. Well, if that was helpful to you, share it with somebody. Lots and lots of people are using these products. It's very important that we get this information out so that people can stay up to date on what is changing in the world. That is it for us this week. If you would like to hear more from us, you can go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. That is askjoedimatteo.com, askjoedimatteo.com. You can also find any of the sales and the wonderful products we've got, like the Bone Base Essentials, our D3 and K2, or any of the other things we got there, all on our website, askjoedimatteo.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. We have sales all the time. And what else is on there? Oh, past episodes of this show and the show that started all this, the Ask Joe DiMatteo show, all on our website. Leave a comment, have a question, drop those down below. We love to see those. Give it a thumbs up or a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this show. Most importantly, share it with somebody you know, somebody who needs to learn these things. Osteoporosis affects something like 70% of all postmenopausal women. So that's a lot of folks. Everybody needs to know this stuff. Joe DiMatteo, thank you so much. As always, Josiah, I'm Tyler Andrews. We'll see you next time.